Tengo un video preparado para ver con ustedes que les va a encantar, ¿eh? No es muy largo, está en inglés, pero le vamos a poner subtítulos debajo. Está muy interesante. Perdón que voy adelantando, pero lo que pasa es que es larguísimo. Quería ver algunas cosas nada más. No nos podemos poner a ver todo porque también se van a aburrir y no me sirve. Pero les quiero mostrar algunas cosas nomás. Esta persona se quiere hacer pasar por loco, pero no es loco.
No, do not think about getting up, right, buddy?
This is 19-year-old Nicolas Cruz, who 3 hours and 55 minutes prior to this moment murdered 17 people at his former high school in Parkland, Florida. Among the dead were 3 teachers and 14 students, the majority of whom were 14 years old. A further 17 students were seriously wounded during the massacre. The gunman dropped his rifle 7 minutes into the rampage and then blended in with the crowd as he ran out of the building. He was at large for 1 hour and 20 minutes, during which time he stopped off at a Subway and then a McDonald's, where he sat down and casually spoke to one of the victim's brothers. The student was unaware that his older sister had just been shot through the chest by the man sitting across the table. The description of the shooter was transmitted by police over the radio, which led to an officer identifying and arresting him on a street just 2 miles away from the school. He was taken to the nearest hospital and examined by a doctor for roughly 1 hour and 45 minutes. He was medically cleared and then transferred to the local sheriff's office where he was subjected to interrogation.
No, do not think about getting up, right, buddy?
From the moment the subject entered the room, his eyes have been fixed upon nothing but the floor. He's held on to this downward-facing gaze as if he's either in a state of shock or disconnected from the moment.
Qué locura, igual que le dejen así, ¿no?
At the exact moment the door shuts, he lifts up his head to observe his surroundings. His behavior completely shifts once he believes no one is watching. If we look at his demeanor a moment earlier, we can see the contrast. He went from being detached to alert. His behavior changed as the environment changed, which is a recurring theme throughout this interrogation. It shows us that his mind isn't wandering off during these moments of apparent disconnection. He is in fact fully present and very aware of what's going on around him. As he looks up, his eyes immediately lock onto the camera. He now knows he is still being watched, and his following gestures will resemble that of someone with suicidal tendencies.
Clave, Bauti. Gracias, brother. ¿Qué hace? ¿Qué hace? Best actor ever. ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago? ¿Qué hago?
At face value, these externalized suicidal thoughts may seem genuine to some, but when framed with the rest of his behavior throughout this interrogation, they are exposed for what they really are: an act, a calculated attempt to garner sympathy and paint his character in what he believes to be a more positive light.
O sea, se quiere hacer pasar por loco y en realidad lo que menos parece es eso.
All right, how you doing, Nick? You all right? Gotta be able to speak so I can hear you. Alright, I just need to ask you really your name and date of birth just to confirm I got it right, and then I'm gonna see you want a glass of water or something. What's your first name?
This is a situation where the proof against the suspect is already conclusive. He is without question responsible for the crimes under investigation, making the pursuit of a confession non-essential. The police know he did it, but they need to know why he did it, which would already require a complex strategy in order to obtain the correct information. But the suspect's first recorded statements upon his arrest have now made the procedure considerably more difficult.
What's going on today, bro?
The demons, man.
Demons?
Voices.
Yeah, no problem.
Voices.
Voices and demons?
Where's the voices? What happened?
Shut up. Just be quiet, man. Shut
up. Demons, man. Voices.
These two words have now forged the primary stratagem of his own interrogation. which is to cut through deception under the guise of supportive examination.
Claro, busca la inimputabilidad por insanía.
The questions will be designed to lock him into a specific narrative about his alleged psychosis, while simultaneously giving him the impression that
Oh, los de la pradera, ¿cómo están? Los
his
amos.
responses are for his own benefit. Anything he says now can be used to refute any amendments he might come up with at a later stage. We all know that after this interrogation, he will have significantly more time to think, study, and even seek guidance from professionals about how the legal system interconnects with mental illness. Yet the majority of this forthcoming knowledge could be useless to him depending on what he says during these moments. The more details he gives away, the less options he will have for his defense later on. But pursuing this objective is complicated, as there are two
Alta edición,
very common
Hola, Benja.
scenarios for when this type of suspect gets interrogated. And just to
No vamos
we
a ver
need-
los 50 minutos, pero me gusta ver al menos un ratito para que vean algo distinto a lo que siempre ven, que son los clips, que esto, que lo otro, ¿no?
means someone who is, 1, pretending to be insane, and 2, not fooling anyone. Their most common response
Mi prima de Estados Unidos vive en Parkland, donde sucedió esa masacre. ¿En serio? Y tiene amigos que estaban en ese colegio. ¡Qué casualidad!
is to simply shut down. They regress into total silence or some type of catatonic state, and the interrogation never gets off the ground.
Claro,
the
claro.
other common response is the exact opposite. They erupt into hysteria or supposed delirium, and everything from that point forward becomes
Claro,
incoherent.
claro.
The lead detective, John Curcio, must not allow either of these scenarios to transpire, and this makes the first 2 minutes absolutely crucial. He needs to create a positive first impression and resemble the furthest thing from a threat, while at the same time maintain a presence of authority. His temperament will be easygoing and non-confrontational, but also encouraging when extracting
mañana,
a
Lola.
response. His role at this moment is the ally. He needs to be liked, respected, but must not be feared. Not yet anyway. Going off the suspect's initial demeanor, the detective will know that he is far more likely to regress into a state of silence at this opening stage. And if he can prevent that from happening
Saludos,
within the
baneado.
first 2 minutes, he is over the first obstacle.
Bueno, vamos a prestar atención,
How you
va.
doing, Nick? I just need to ask you really your name and date of birth just to confirm I got it right, and then I'm gonna see you want a glass of water or something. What's your first name? Come on, Nick.
¿Me pasás ese video, Mechu?
Spell it for me.
Diciendo lo que iba a hacer.
I'm old. You gotta talk so I can hear you. N-I-K. O. Okay. A-S. And what's your middle name? Come on, man. Speak so I can hear you. Jacob. J-A-C. What's your date of birth? Okay, you need to relax because I'm the last detective or policeman you're going to have to talk to. So right off the bat, that should be somewhat comforting to you to know that I'm the last guy you got to talk to. But the thing.
A ver.
This is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am.
Muchas veces los asesinos lo que buscan es reconocimiento, tener esa atención que nunca tuvieron y destacar, ser conocidos o tener relevancia, no por un motivo obviamente loable, sino por un motivo nefasto, pero en definitiva es reconocimiento para ellos.
Can't wait. Today is the day that it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will run in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power, they will know who I am. I am nothing, I am no one. My life is nothing and meaningless. Everything that I hold dear, I let go beyond your half. Every day I see the world ending another day. I live a lone life, live in seclusion and
Hola,
solitude.
Ramiro.
I hate everyone and everything. With the power of my AR, you will all know who I am. I had enough of being told what to do and when to do.
Ah, es un enfermito.
I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life,
Parece que la novia lo dejó y después de eso quedó como loquito.
you're all the dumbass.
Hola, Cami.
You're all stupid and brainwashed by these political government programs. You will all see, you will all know who my name is.
Una falta de atención.
My love for you, Angie, will never go away.
Ah, la mierda, mira,
I
justo
hope to see
mencionó
you
lo que
in the
decías.
afterlife. And one day or another, you will end, and we'll all die. Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll
Qué
go
locura, ¿no? Ser el Uber que lleva a este asesino a matar gente y no saberlo.
onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main,
Qué locura, boludo.
courtyard.
Qué locura. Bueno, sigamos viéndolo siendo entrevistado. Interrogado.
The thing about it is, look at me. I gotta be able to hear you.
Hola, Cande, hola, Ale.
Okay? So all I want to do is get basic information from you, and then we'll get into the, you know, whether you want a glass of water,
La cara de
all that
idiota.
stuff. What's your date of birth?
09.
January?
09.
09 September.
Dale, Mar,
The
puede ser.
investigation team already know the answers to these basic questions. Their only purpose are to initiate a response, and their non-threatening nature make it more likely for the suspect to engage. They are essentially the opening wedge to get the two-way dialogue flowing. And although the suspect is still partially committed to his catatonic state, as we can clearly see, he is still responsive, making it unlikely for him to regress into complete silence from this
Claro,
point forward.
es una
Everything
estrategia.
up to this moment has gone.
Es obvio que es una estrategia. Vos pensás que mirá si no van a tener esa información con todo el registro de datos que tiene la policía americana.
The plan. The detective has
Lo mismo cuando llegas al aeropuerto, te preguntan todas giladas que ellos ya saben. Ellos ya tienen registrado quiénes son las personas que van en los vuelos, tienen todo controlado, más aún después del 911. Entonces, todo lo que te preguntan es para corroborar información, en realidad.
one foot in the door, and
La
he can
amiga
now
no es
develop
ninguna
a
boluda.
relationship from a more secure position. He goes about this with a standard method of rapport development, the offer of food and water.
All right. Let me do this. You want cold water? You know if you want cold water? Thank you. Well, I'm going to bring in two because I want one that was hot. And then if you decide you want to have it, that's fine. You sure you don't want something to eat? Okay.
The refusal to accept food and water is a familiar response which you may have already seen on this channel. It's a glaring manifestation of shame. This is not to be confused with guilt nor remorse, both of which require the acceptance of responsibility, which in turn directs our focus out.
Exigen la aceptación de la responsabilidad y cambian el enfoque a los sentimientos de los demás.
Outwards on the feelings of others. Shame, on the other hand, shifts our focus on the perceptions of others towards ourselves. The subject is afraid of how it will look if he accepts the offer, considering the circumstances. He instead wants to appear as if he's so negatively affected by the events that he's unconcerned with meeting his basic needs.
Of course, I have so many different keys. All right, I'll be right back.
Es muy interesante porque cerró la puerta y automáticamente se está lamentando, o sea, comprende. No, está loco.
Once again.
O sea, una cosa es ser un desviado mental, quizás, desde el punto de vista de creer que puede ir y lo hace, matar a la gente. Y otra cosa es no comprender la criminalidad de sus actos, ¿se entiende? Son cosas distintas. Porque a veces se usa la palabra loco como muy livianamente, ¿no? Y una cosa es saber lo que querés hacer y querer el resultado, o sea, entender el acto y querer su resultado, tener la dominabilidad del hecho y comprender la complejidad de lo que lleva y realmente quererlo como tal, saber lo que haces y querer el resultado. Y otra cosa muy distinta es no saber lo que haces sino comprender su posible resultado, que eso ya sería lo que él trata de demostrar con un actuar supuestamente de una persona demente, ¿no? Entonces son cosas muy distintas. No es tan fácil, no es una pavadita, ¿no? De decir, ay, estoy loco. No entiendo. No, sí, las bolas.
His demeanor abruptly switches when the detective leaves the room. With his head buried in his hands, it's anyone's guess as to what is going through his mind at this moment. But what you are about to see next is extremely revealing.
Me da bronca que haya anuncios de Twitch porque no nos sirve a nosotros, o sea, lo ponen para ellos. Bueno, miren, acá está mirando, de la nada.
Cruz was a left-handed shooter. The surveillance at the school would confirm this, and if you pay close attention to the movements of his hands in the next moments, although very subtle, you can see that he's reimagining holding his weapon. But what's more telling is how his demeanor abruptly stops and then completely switches right before he looks in the direction of the camera. He goes from holding a rifle and beginning to smirk, to then pretending to cry and reverting back to his suicidal mannerisms. This all occurs in under 4 seconds.
¿Ves? Se nota totalmente que está fingiendo. Mira, mira.
It could be assumed that for a brief moment, he was not only recollecting the attack, but gaining gratification from doing so. He then remembered he was on film, giving reason for the sharp adjustment. His true self was reliving the attack and enjoying his work, while his false self was so dejected to the point he was externalizing suicidal thoughts. Complete opposites.
Boludo, está muy interesante este video. Hola, Char, ¿cómo estás? Sí, ya mandé saludito para la granja, bro.
His next calculated charade is one of self-harm.
Mató 17 personas, Jumbo.
He first bites
En un
himself
colegio.
without drawing blood, or leaving any marks that were visible in his jail intake photographs.
Está interesante, lo voy a dejar un
He
ratito
then
más.
scratches and squeezes at the 2 needle punctures in his arm from where his blood was taken at the hospital. At the very moment the detective re-enters the room, he will act as if he's desperately trying to conceal his self-injurious behavior.
All right.
Setting aside the glaring contradiction that he just murdered and maimed dozens of people while leaving himself without so much as a scratch, it's the frequency of these little charades that makes their deception so transparent. This is a person who is not self-injurious, pretending to be someone that is, but it's such a feeble attempt at feigned self-harm, it would almost be a comical moment if the circumstances weren't as horrific.
So if they're not bleeding anymore and you want them off, we can pull them off. I'll get you a garbage can. You want them off? Just put them on the throw them on the floor in the corner. Alright, this one is mine, because I already opened it. This one's yours in case you change your mind.
The next 4 minutes are the extremely tedious process of getting the subject to engage further through basic questions. The topic of his phone will now be brought up.
What about your phone? Do you have a phone?
I lost it.
When did you lose it?
Igual los huevos que tiene el chabón como para... no, tiene las manos libres. Tipo, si quiere pegarle, le pega. También se come un garrón ahí, pero...
Today.
Igual debe estar
What
bien
kind of
entrenado,
phone
no
is
como
it?
los de acá.
I don't know.
Okay, is it a flip top, an iPhone, a Samsung? It's a phone. What's the number?
I can't remember.
Okay.
He will now begin to feign a state of hysteria, which then morphs into a simulated panic attack and fake hyperventilation. The detective will need to refute the act immediately as to not let the subject gain confidence with it, but he also has to maintain rapport and avoid confrontation. He essentially has to tell the subject to knock it off, but in the most passive manner possible.
I can't remember, dude. I can't.
Okay, Nick, calm down.
Okay.
You've already been medically cleared. I know what's going to be talked about is difficult, but again, you don't remember your phone number. How long you had the phone? How long have you had the phone?
Bueno, vamos a tomar agüita.
Nick, the doctor's already looked at you.
Igual yo pienso que toda esta locura es culpa de la sociedad tan estructurada que vivimos. Nah. O sea, Freud justo... Ah, esto me olvidé de leerlo en el video, la concha de mi madre. Después lo voy a leer. Pero Freud planteaba que había ciertas accionares prohibidos universalmente, como regla general, que era el incesto y el asesinato, y que eran contradictorios. El incesto del asesinato, porque el asesinato planteaba la figura, ¿cómo era? Planteaba, para que esto me lo leí justo hoy, a ver, planteaba como que el asesinato era contradictorio al incesto porque la descendencia de la figura paterna lo veía como algunos estudios de psicología que me ayude, lo veía como algo negativo, ¿no? Por el hecho de que era como un control de rebaño y evitaba el control de la sexualidad sobre la madre, ¿no? Y, ¿cómo era? Era algo así. Entonces, al asesinar al padre, no era raro también que haya una figura de incesto porque no tener en cuenta la figura paterna, una cosa así re flashera, no tener en cuenta la figura paterna era contradictorio porque ¿cómo había descendencia si no había una figura paterna que posibilite ese rebaño o esa descendencia? Un flash así. ¿Alguien sabe de eso? Bueno, no me acuerdo. Pero era una cosa de esas. Entonces el incesto era contradictorio al asesinato, pero que ambos generaban ese deseo de lo prohibido, ¿no? Por parte de las personas. Algo así era. Bueno, no sé, no me acuerdo muy bien, pero era algo así. Pero estuve leyendo ahí, pero es difícil porque, bueno, yo no estudié psicología, no puedo saber todo. Bueno, sigamos.
Okay, you're fine.
Solo te pedí un lápiz.
Problems at the moment.
Bueno, dale play, guachín, te voy a matar, bueno.
You're perfectly fine. So calm your breathing down. All right? And I want to believe.
Al hermano de Nicolas le prohibieron acercarse a la escuela a un rango de 20 kilómetros porque cuando recién había sucedido eso, el loco pasaba todos los días en auto por la puerta. Nadie sabe para qué.
Certain things that you're going to tell me, but, you know, if we're getting where you're going to hyperventilate over a phone number, okay? All right.
All right.
So what's your phone number? Huh?
954.
Okay, 954.
The manic episode is somewhat curbed, but the subject is still clearly committed to it.
954-821.
2007.
2007.
1007.
1007. And again, going back to what kind it is. Do you know if it's an iPhone, a Samsung? How long have you had it? Every kid knows what the phone is, man. I got kids your age.
Ever since my mother died.
I know, I heard about that. That's what I was going to talk about next.
This is a turning point. Cruz's adoptive mother had indeed passed away the year prior from pneumonia. The topic is sympathetic towards himself, and it seems to have stopped the feigned hysteria in its tracks. Compared to his neurotic behavior in the minutes leading up to this moment, he all of a sudden appears calm. He is clearly receptive, and thus responsive, to the cue of compassion when it's directed at himself. The detective recognizes this, and although he said he would talk about the subject's mother next, he instead focuses on it immediately to keep him engaged.
Alright. So, but since your mom died, how long has your mom passed?
I can't remember anything.
Okay. This
November.
year or last year?
November.
November? Okay.
No me acuerdo, noviembre.
Okay. When your mom passed, were you living
Hola
with her?
Priscila, ¿cómo andás? ¿Qué lindo nombre tenés?
What city was that? Parkland?
The subject drops the act and becomes more engaged in the conversation. The detective inquires further about his mother for roughly 3 minutes before shifting the discussion. It focuses mainly on the subject's background.
Hola
and he
Vale, ¿cómo estás? Tanto tiempo.
first declares that he was depressed for the majority of his childhood. He then reveals his history of drug use, which consists of marijuana and Xanax. After that, he claims to have
Fuertísimo el
attempted
Xanax.
suicide by alcohol poisoning 2 years ago, but in his own words, was able to sleep it off. He then states that he was employed at the Dollar Tree for the last 2 years working as a cashier.
So you've been able to hold down a job for 2 years. That's pretty good, right?
Lawn mowing.
What?
Lawn mowing.
Lawn mowing? Oh, okay. All right. When you tried to kill yourself with alcohol, your mom was still alive. What were you depressed about back then?
Loneliness.
Loneliness?
Loneliness.
Friends? No friends? Or what kind of loneliness? I mean, everybody gets lonely.
Solitude.
Solitude? You don't have a lot of friends?
No.
Okay. Today, when I say today, starting from last night when you went to bed to this morning, did you do any kind of drugs at all? Any Xanax, any marijuana, anything like that? Okay.
The subject reveals that he has a biological brother whom he was adopted with. He then claims to have been making $1,200 a month at the Dollar Tree. The discussion now lands on what his aspirations were.
When you weren't depressed, what did you want to be when you got out of school? A ranger, an army ranger?
Los guardabosques,
Did you ever
Ranger.
apply, fill out any paperwork to try to go to the
Hola
army?
Fran, ¿cómo estás? ¿Todo bien?
Failed.
Okay, why'd you fail?
Because I was stupid.
You what?
I'm stupid.
You're stupid? Okay, were you gonna take it again?
I was afraid to take it.
Okay, but you had aspirations to do something with your life. You wanted to be that's a hell of a thing to want to be an army ranger.
The discussion moves on to the subject's gun collection, which continues for roughly 4.5 minutes. The attack on the school is yet to be mentioned, but the last gun to now be discussed was his choice of weapon to commit the massacre.
What made you choose out of all the guns to want to buy an AR-15?
Cool with it.
Cool looking? Okay. Now when you bought it, I mean, it was a legitimate purchase. They gave you a receipt and everything, right? So you bought it legally, right? Did you fill out those forms and everything? Okay, you remember those forms? Okay.
The detective now shifts the topic onto his former high school, the same place he carried out the attack.
Now, 3 years ago when you went to Douglas, and obviously
Qué bronca que me da, boludo. Tengo ganas de partirle la cara a alguien ahora.
you stopped going there. Why'd you stop going there?
My depression worsened.
The depression worsened, and what was going on?
Hola Luz.
Did you just stop school on your own, or did some incident happen where?
Yes, and
Well, what was the incident that happened?
I fought a kid.
You fought a kid. You remember the kid's name?
Yeah.
Ian. And did you guys both get in trouble for the fight, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what did they do? Suspend you?
They suspended me.
Okay. And what happened from there? After you got suspended, did you go back to school?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened? Why'd you stop going there then?
Felt embarrassed.
You felt embarrassed because you got suspended, or you felt embarrassed because of what?
Because of the fight.
Okay. Well, what was embarrassing about the fight? What were you guys fighting over?
A girl.
Girl? Well, what was embarrassing about it? I mean, did Ian get the better of you? Was that what was embarrassing, or you
Yes.
just he got the better of you? Okay.
He has just provided the state with a solid argument for a motive. Establishing a reason for an offense is critical when dealing with claims of insanity. It can not only indicate premeditation, but also calculated malice in connection to the crime, something considered absent in the mind of the criminally insane. He also asserts that he was lonely and depressed while attending the school, all of which can reinforce the argument that he was exacting revenge upon the community in which he felt ostracized.
All right, so you go back to school. What ends up happening? You just stop going to school out there, or you got into more problems? Where they
Got into more problems.
what was the more problems?
Failing class.
Okay.
Not going to school.
Okay. And this was all while your mom was still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Did there come a point in time where you just stopped going there, or they expelled you?
Or I just stopped going and then transferred me.
They transferred you? When they transferred you, was that upsetting to you?
Yeah.
Sí, gente, me está costando concentrarme, pero bueno, chill.
Okay.
As we know, the suspect has made the claim about hearing a voice which he labeled the demon. The detective will now attempt to get a detailed narrative of these perceptual disturbances. He will do so by asking a series of open-ended questions, and then continuous follow-up questions thereafter. This will lock him into specific claims about what he was hearing. The more information he gives away, the less he will be able to amend later on. And the more questions that are posed, the suspect believes this is some type of clinical evaluation for the sake of his own well-being. And this misconception will become glaringly apparent later on. He, at this moment, is oblivious to the fact he is giving information away that will be used to cut through his own defense in years to come.
You go to the hospital, the doctors clear you, and you're talking about demons. What are the demons?
The voices.
Well, tell me about it. What are the voices about?
It's another voice, the evil side.
Okay. And how long has that voice been going on?
Years.
Did you ever tell anybody about the voice? Never? And what does the voice say to you?
Burn, kill, destroy.
Okay, burn, kill, destroy what?
Anything.
Okay, but have you ever burned, killed, or destroyed anything? What have you burned, killed, or destroyed?
Burned, just fire. Set fire.
To what?
In a pit. Fire.
Oh, a fire pit. Okay, well, I mean, the voice told you to burn something, you built a fire in a fire pit. What's destructive about that? That's what fire pits are made for. What else did the voice tell you to do?
Saludos, Valen.
Kill animals.
Okay, have you ever killed animals?
Yes.
What kind of animals?
Birds.
Birds? Wild birds or people's
Birds.
pets? How do you kill them?
Birds.
How do you kill them?
Wait for them. Kill them.
Oh, can't catch them, so how are you waiting for them?
Out in the grass. Wait for a bird to come up.
There's no way, man. I'm a bird lover. There's no way. You can't catch a bird, Holmes.
No, I mean like
With a pellet gun? Oh, okay. Where's your pellet gun?
it broke.
Okay. All right. So the voices tell you to hurt animals and
Lo está revoloteando.
start fires in the fire pit. When was the last time you heard the voice?
Yesterday.
What time was it yesterday?
It was at night.
Okay. And where were you at?
Work.
You're at work, so you're at Dollar Tree. And what's the voice telling you?
Hurt people.
To hurt people. Hurt people at Dollar Tree? Or hurt people?
Hurt people in general.
Okay. Doesn't say specifically who? Alright. Can you tell how old the voice is?
My age.
Okay. Do you have a good voice too, or just a bad voice? Is there a voice inside you that says, do good things?
The detective will now start getting confrontational, and the subject's behavior will shift once more in response. You will see him get defensive as he attempts to protect his narrative, and his responses will become much faster. He will even cut the detective off multiple times. Keep in mind that he was barely saying anything at the start of this interrogation.
No?
So it's bad.
Can't be. You held down a job for 2 years. If you were doing things bad, you wouldn't be able to hold a job down for 2 years, right?
Me gusta porque lo tiene acorralado el loco, ¿eh?
Okay. I mean, look. Everybody has...
It's me and then my bad side.
I understand. Everybody's got a, quote, good and bad side. There's people...
No, it's a voice. The voice isn't here. And it's me. Just regular me. Just trying to be a good person.
Okay.
Set aside his contradicting behavior for a moment and focus solely on his storyline. In his ideal scenario, we are to believe that he was battling these supposed voices and, in his own words, trying to be a good person. Yet he was unable to reveal or seek help for this internal struggle until the very moment
creo
of
que
his
no era
arrest.
mayor, ¿eh?
It was quite
Ah, no, sí, creo que él ya había terminado.
literally the second he was confronted with his comeuppance that his supposed demons came to light. Now that he is in custody, with the atrocities already committed, he is somehow able to maintain control over the force that was previously keeping him silent. But a deleted video that would later be extracted from his phone would tell a very different story.
Ah, mira,
Hello.
justo lo ponen.
My name is Nick, and I'm gonna be the next school shooter of 2018.
Esto ya lo vimos.
You see,
Disturbances. There is no anguish.
yeah.
There are no signs of perceptual disturbances. There is no anguish, doubt, hesitation, or uncertainty when announcing his intentions.
Claro.
By his own narrative, he claims to have continuously fought against the evil
Claro.
intentions of the voice.
Mentira.
Yet from a visual
Un pelotudo que se grabó, igual mejor.
standpoint, there is no conflict in this video whatsoever.
It's me and then my bad side.
I understand. Everybody's got a, quote, good and bad side. There's people...
No, it's a voice. The voice isn't here. And it's me. Just trying to be a good person.
Okay. But obviously, again, when you say it's a voice, it's you. It's all you.
What do you
The
mean?
voice is you as well.
Yeah,
The voice didn't force you to do anything, right?
No, the voice did. It's two voices.
Uh-huh.
There's one half that's the good and then the bad.
Yeah.
Ah, la
His
miércoles.
rapidly interchanging behavior has now gone from catatonic to manic to hallucinatory to now highly attentive and cautious.
Okay, well, the voice tells me to go to lunch and not pay for my meal, but I pay for my meal because I know that's the right thing to do, right? Okay, let's talk about it. Did the voice didn't tell you to take Uber, right?
Yes, it did.
It did?
Yes.
The voice said take Uber.
Yes.
Did
The voice is in me.
You're the voice. There's
In here.
okay, it's in your head.
Yes.
What is it? A male voice or a female voice?
Male.
Male.
The subject was beginning to panic, but the detective dials it in for the time being and switches the discussion back to more trivial matters. It seems that he wants to consult with the investigators outside before maximizing the pressure, and he reestablishes a certain level of trust before leaving the room.
Let me go. I'm going to go back and see what everybody's doing as far as what they need me to do.
You're not a psychologist or anything? Or?
No, I'm not. I'm a 59-year-old man who's raised 3 children, so I guess that makes me somewhat of a psychologist.
Think you can give me a psychologist here?
I can certainly ask.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a psychologist before?
No.
Okay.
The subject scratches his arm for another 2 minutes. He then switches to a hallucinatory state and appears to be seeing things in the room.
All right. Got some stuff here.
Claro, es muy obvio, es muy obvio. Tipo, vi al chabón y después, ay, sigo viendo alucinaciones.
The detective will once more dismiss the act by pretending to not see it. He will then
Son una
pose a question
chupaverga.
to the subject, and the charade will cease immediately.
A ver, a ver.
You with the water. Oh, you put it back over here. You definitely don't want the water, huh?
It's very interesting to observe his facial
Sí.
expressions at the
Sí.
exact moments he abandons fake behavior. These are the very brief junctures to surface. It's easy to get distracted by the present situation as he sits there in a hospital gown chained to the floor, essentially helpless to the cunning devices being used against him. But in moments like this, we are reminded of what we're actually dealing with. A very short time ago, he was not helpless at all. He was the one preying on the helpless, offering them none of the sympathy nor mercy of which he is now trying to garner for himself.
Claro.
All right, the school or the psychologist you want to talk to.
No, Andy, no hay video.
Obviously, I would have to tell him what you want to talk to him about. So, what exactly what do you want me to ask him, or why do you want to talk to a psychologist?
Find out what's wrong with me.
Well, what do you think's wrong with you?
I don't know.
The detective in this next segment will attain further information about the supposed voices, only he will no longer have to tread carefully in order to maintain a friendly connection. He will still secure useful information, but also get confrontational as and when he pleases. The risk of frightening the suspect to the point where it stops the interrogation is no longer a concern.
When you hear the voices, are the voices like outside your head or inside your head when you hear them?
Inside.
Okay, so it's not like you don't hear a voice from that corner talking to you. It's inside your head. And is it always the same voice, or is it only one voice?
One voice, yeah.
And you said it's a man's voice? That's yeah.
Yes.
Does it sound like anybody you've ever met? Anybody you ever seen on TV? Can you tell, like, by an accent? Is it what kind of, is it an old man, young man, white man,
Young
black?
man.
Young man? About the same age as you think? But it's only one voice you ever hear, right?
Yes.
Bueno, después
Do you hear the...
lo seguimos viendo si quieren. Después lo seguimos viendo. Yo no le estoy prestando mucha atención. O sea, está bueno, pero no le estoy prestando mucha atención.